Good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'd like to thank FII Institute for the invitation to moderate this panel. Now, we have three very important speakers. I'll announce the first one is Eduardo Paes, Mayor of Rio de Janeiro. Then we have two private sector executives. We have Mr. Alberto Griselli, Team Brazil CEO. And then we have Mr. Perez, Chief Commercial Officer of King Salman International Airport. Well, I think we have an interesting discussion about how can investment infrastructure turn megacities and megaregions. So I'll start with Mr. Eduardo Paes. And I'd like to hear your views as a mayor, as a public administrator. How you view these challenges, and how do you navigate them as a public administrator to stimulate investment and drive growth in the city?
I mean, we should be speaking in Portuguese, okay? But I'll do it in English.
No, you prefer to
No, do it in English. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
But let me try to say a few things here. First, I mean, as we know, in the world today, I'm not saying that the role of national countries are not as important as cities, but trade, deals, changes are much more between cities these days than between countries. This is something very important. What we see, and this is something that we need to understand, that it's the world has become more and more urbanized. When we talk about Latin America, we talk about 80% of the population living in cities. And this is not something that we can change anymore. So we need to adapt our cities to that condition. So when you talk about, and I think we have an amazing example here in Brazil, it's Rio and São Paulo. I mean, they are very near cities, they're close by, and there is a big problem, for instance, between the connection of these two cities. So it would be an amazing example. For example, I know that Vice President Geraldo Alckmin is coming here, but if we could have this fast train connecting Rio to São Paulo, that would improve the quality of this city. So I think our cities, the mega cities that we have today, they need more infrastructure, but it's also needed to connect these cities even more.
Okay, and what are you specifically doing to address these challenges?
I mean, there's one thing, when you look at how the world is being urbanized, I think the world has followed much more what I could say is the American model, which is not a good model. I mean, cities spread in a horizontal way. So what we're trying to do in Rio, as an example, it's trying to kind of lower these possibilities of spreading the city from a horizontal perspective, and get the city back to its orange. So we have in Rio, we've been doing that for the past 15 years. How can we get the old downtown of Rio, the old center of Rio, the areas that have more infrastructure, that the schools are already there, hospitals are already there, sewage is already there, then you will save money. As much as you spread the city, the city is going to get more expensive. So that's something that we're trying to do a lot in Rio.
Okay, thank you. Now turn to Mr. Griselli. And I want to know your viewpoint about these questions, and which demand huge investments in technology and connectivity. How does a telecom company like TIM operate in such a landscape to unleash the potential of these urban clusters?
Well, I think that the technology in general and infrastructure in general is a key driver of social and economic development. Megacities, megaregions, countries, everything in general. So we are sort of in the middle of it because we are enabler of a number of productivity gain and a socioeconomic gain, both for companies and people. So we are, I think, a bit in the center of it. So Eduardo was mentioning, talking about a mega region like São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, the need of logistical infrastructure, like the train. And to some extent, as a technology provider, we turn this need less necessary because technology sort of eliminates distance. So I remember this. I was commenting this. I was discussing this with our guys 10 years ago. Our company, our headquarters, is centered in Rio de Janeiro. And
It shows that he's a smart guy.
now it's even smarter. Let's look at this. And so 10 years ago, the discussion was, should we move to São Paulo? Because at that time, you know, you got more human capital, you got more resources, and we sticked with Rio de Janeiro. Today, this discussion never happened. Why? Because basically it's the same mega region, and so we got the same human capital, and being here or there doesn't really change anything for us. And so I think that technology is an enabler for that. I think that 5G, coming to more specific things, is a stronger enabler. So when we discuss 4G, 4G is a technology that is good to serve human beings. And so when you look at the technology capacity, you can serve in 1 square kilometers 10,000 things or humans. When you move to 5G, these 10,000 moves to 1 million, and therefore this allows cities or megacity to put sensors almost everywhere and grow productivity in the city. Traffic, smart lighting, smart traffic, and this sort of applications. What are we doing? We are deploying 5G in Brazil. And if you look at a city like Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo, we got already 100% coverage. And if you go to Europe, Brazil is, in some cases, far ahead, because here 5G is almost persistent in big cities. I think that one question related to this, how we can make this available on a larger scale. The 40 main mega regions in the world occupy a teeny fraction of the land. They host 20% of the population. They generate 60% of the economic activity and 85% of overall innovation. So there is the 20% of people that are here, and there are 80% of people that are not here. And technology can help include these people also. Because since technology eliminates distance, it can create some kind of virtual mega regions. Mm-hmm. And therefore, Faria Lima is more connected to New York than with rural Brazil. You can include other people. And Brazil is doing, I think, the right thing to make this happen. When 5G has been awarded in Brazil, differently from some countries in Europe, or for example, the United States, that they decided to have a lot of income by auctioning these frequencies, we got coverage obligations. So we need to go everywhere. And I think this is a smart way to include everybody into this process.
Thank you very much.
Let me just make a comment on what he said. I mean, and the beauty of that, using technology, is that this guy can live in Rio, wake up in this beautiful, amazing city, get a bike ride to Christ Redeemer or to Vista Chinesa, and at the same time speak to the beautiful Faria Lima without being there. So I said it. Sorry.
Thank you. Mr. Perez, now I'd like your take on these issues, and especially, how do you believe the investment in infrastructure such as airports can transform megacities and facilitate the unlocking of growth opportunities?
Good morning. Thank you for having us here. Well, clearly, it's intertwined. You cannot have a mega city without an airport. It doesn't have to be a mega airport, but clearly it's part of the supply chain. It's clearly part of the connectivity between that city and the world. Take, for example, we flew from Riyadh to Dubai, then Dubai, here 15 hours. So in 15 hours, we were here in Rio, and here we are, doing business and connecting, doing things on the phone, connecting, having visual calls, and doing all sorts of things. We keep functioning as if we were in Riyadh or somewhere else. So I think the part of the airport business that some cities forget is that we require a lot of land, and we required an environment that is consistency with the growth of the city. So if the city is progressive, the city is attracting big businesses, attracting international companies, they're doing their homework. The airport will also do it by attracting airlines, attracting service, and more importantly, connecting that city to the rest of the world, exporting, importing, moving things that need to go by air, such as high-tech, pharma, and other products. So I think the airport is an integral part of the progress of that city, and without the two, it cannot exist. I worked in Australia before, and I remember an experience where we were so remote in a part where there were people wanting to export fruits and other vegetables to China and the rest of Asia, but they couldn't do so because taking it to the next airport would take about a day and a half. Not to mention that all the damage that will occur to the product. So what you had is that if you were able to connect with an airline that will provide the service, suddenly these people were able to sell the products at much better pricing, and not to mention they didn't have to use other services. So it's part of growing the local economy and growing the city's businesses base.
Okay, thank you. Now, Eduardo, I'd like to listen to your opinion. When Brazil invests very little in infrastructure, if you see our investment to GDP rates, it's 16% of GDP, very low. How can a city like Rio de Janeiro overcome this problem and attract private investment to invest in infrastructure here?
I mean, there's the obvious way, which is private investments with PPPs, concessions. I think through the past 3-4 decades, Brazil has built an institutional framework, legal framework that can make people, investors feel safe to come and invest in Brazil. There are some good examples, some models. So the renovation of the downtown area of Rio was a big PPP made by the city of Rio. We just had made by the state. The governor was here yesterday. He gave us an example. The sewage system of the city was just conceded to the private sector. So I think we built in Brazil this legal framework. Institutions are strong enough so the investments can come. I mean, we're talking about a company as TIM that comes and invests in Brazil and knows that things are going to get done. And by the way, it's a better example than what just happened in the US. But we need a little change of minds. I mean, I was looking yesterday at President Lula's speech here. I mean, I have some friends that are bankers, and I mean, his message was so clear: fiscal responsibility, but we need to grow. And then you wake up today and see, the currency of the dollar just rise because of what Lula said yesterday. So it's like Brazil, and this is almost a political statement here. It's so weird because every time we talk about investments in Brazil, the so-called market comes and say we cannot do any investments. It's ridiculous. A country the size of Brazil, I'll get back to the fast train between Rio and São Paulo, a country as huge as that, 2 cities, the most important cities of the country. Every time you talk about doing a train between these 2 cities, it's like, no, this is a sin. You cannot have public money investing on that. So there's the obvious way. We need private money coming. We need concessions. We need PPPs. But there's always going to be the necessity of public money and doing some investments in the infrastructure of the country. And this cannot be, it's almost a sin.
But don't you think the fiscal uncertainties could jeopardize investment in Brazil?
For sure, but that's why I think the message of President Lula was very clear yesterday. I mean, we have fiscal responsibility, and Brazil has shown that through the years. We have fiscal responsibility, but we also need to get the country growing. So that's why we are so happy to host here this event, to have this mutual fund with Saudi Arabia to make more investments. We need to get as much private money as we can, but there are sometimes that we're going to need to put some public money onto investments. And this cannot be, I mean, something that you have to wait forever. But that cannot be something that it's not a clear message to the market that we are working through fiscal responsibility. Things can move together.
Okay.
As my opinion, I know it's hard sometimes to understand, but I was especially because it was funny because yesterday when President Lula made his speech here, 3 or 4 bankers, important guys, sent me, "What an amazing speech." And then by the afternoon was like, "Oh my God, the market is, noisy because Lula said something." I said, I was not in the same room as they were, or maybe he said something after he left. But as far as I remember, the only because he was flying to Geneva yesterday, so the only thing he said was here, and it was very clear message on fiscal responsibility, but the necessity of the country to grow.
But he didn't say anything about cutting current expenditures, for example.
I mean, I was watching. I think the message was very clear. That's why what we need to do is, and sometimes that's why we, from a public perspective, we complain. And you're talking to a guy that has lots of fiscal responsibility, running the city of Rio, has large PPPs. I mean, the situation of the city is an amazing situation, but we need sometimes public investments, or these guys are not going to come. So these things can move together, fiscal responsibility with some public investments.
Okay.
That's why we have so much lack of infrastructure.
Okay. So I'd like you to ask the same question. Infrastructure investment, as we're talking, needs collaboration between public and private sectors, especially in countries like in Latin America, through PPPs, like Eduardo said. What steps should Latin American cities take to streamline and attract private sector investment in infrastructure?
Well, when it comes to our sector, we invest by default. We serve our customers, and so, of course, we operate in a broader context. The more stable it is, the better it is. But we just invest, and we invest for everybody. And, of course, we want to make a return on those investments, like the rollout of 5G, for example. So we invest. There are a number of factors that facilitate this investment. So our, let's say, legal and regulatory framework that is pretty favorable in Brazil. We got a number of interaction at the state level, at the municipality level. Like, for example, with Eduardo, we discussed the necessity to install antennas, and so the process that needs to be followed to get there and put investment. And this is something that we do for our core business, for consumers and business. Then there are other things that are more related to the future and to the megacities, megaregions, like the implementation of specific use cases for citizens, for the governments, and for the industry. And this is all when there is still a return. Like, for example, we are working with municipalities for smart lighting. So it's a PPP, as Eduardo mentioned. So what is the municipality looking for is reducing the cost of energy. And so we go there, we put our technology, and the energy is greener, and the energy, so the municipality spend less, is more sustainable, and the service is available when the customer pass by. So the municipalities provide a better service to their consumers. So this is one example, for example. Or we have in rural Brazil partnership with the agribusiness sectors that want to make their precision agro, and therefore they support our investment to get digital end-to-end. And then there are other policies that are more national and vertical policies, for example, to bring connectivity to schools. In that case, it's not a profitable investment for us, and there are specific funds that the government wants to use to provide these services to the broader audience. So I think it's investment that we do by ourselves, investment that we do with the municipalities and with the private sectors, and policies that the government is putting in place to include schools and areas where we wouldn't go unless in this way.
Okay. Mr. Perez?
I think it's a decision by the leadership. Let's take King Salman Airport, for example. The leadership wants to make the airport an engine, economic engine for the region, not just for Riyadh, but for the entire region of Saudi Arabia to some extent, what it corresponds to that area, geographical area. And so they made a conscious decision not just to build an airport, but to build the airport that would attract people to live in the area, companies, businesses to establish, incubators, to develop a city within a city that will cater, but will have an airport in it as well. In my experience in Latin America, having been associated with a number of projects down here, the issue is risks. You can get money, but the risk, instability, political risk is high. Money follows money. If you can make money, you will go to whether you concession an airport, you build an airport, whatever the case may be. The issue is risk and what is the volatility of those markets and the stability of that region to be able to pay off for that investment over the long term. So to me is that, in this case, our leadership in Riyadh and Saudi Arabia, they made a conscious decision to put quite a significant amount of money in separating themselves from the oil revenues and focusing on tourism, focusing on business, and focusing on developing an infrastructure that would attract business to develop the region, create jobs, etc. So they see the airport as a catalyst, a way to get there. And not only they do that, but they also want to do it in a different way. The airport is so new in the way that conceptually it's being developed and being designed that you could probably mix visitors to the airport as well as travelers in one location. Citizens from Riyadh will go and spend the day at the airport shopping, doing whatever, seeing a show, whatever whatever is being offered, as well as the travelers would be able to enjoy that as well and take their flights. So the security issue will be somewhat, with the use of AI and other tools, will be reduced significantly so that people can mingle, they can interact, and can walk around in a gate, probably, not too far from that painting there. So the idea is to bring inside the airport an environment where people don't feel like, you don't belong here if you're not traveling. On the contrary, we want you here, want you to spend the money, spend time with us. We, unfortunately, in Latin America, we view this as only 3% of the people can afford to travel. So we cannot build an airport that only benefits 3% of the population. We need to build roads, we need to build hospitals, schools, and so on and so on. That requires foreign money, capital, which, environment, for some reason, is not adequate for people to invest.
Okay, thank you. Well, we have close to a minute, so I'd like to listen to your concluding remarks, very brief ones, about these challenges of investment in infrastructure. I'll start with Eduardo again.
As I said here, I'm going to look at the history of Brazil and the opportunity that we have with this event. We need private money. Brazil has built its environment, its institutional framework, so, welcome and invest, keep investing in Brazil. We have an amazing airport in Rio, so we can partner, and the next flight between Brazil and Saudi Arabia can be to Rio. I'll bet that they're going to be much happier.
Thank you, Eduardo.
Stable and legal regulatory environment, investment will flow, we all benefit. If it builds or improve an airport here, our technology comes along, so it's business for a number of industry related to this infrastructure development. So I would say regulatory and legal certainty.
Okay. Luis.
I think airports are, necessary in every city, and it's something that I think is, if managed and developed in the right way, I think it could be extremely helpful to the city's development.
Okay. So I'd like to thank our two speakers. I'd like to thank you, every one of you, and I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you.